Right, well, we're live. Thank. Oh, crap. There we are. Good. It started working again. Boy, I gotta love these introductions.
Yeah, we're known for being organized and
Making sure that everything works before trying it on stream, and
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
we are the epitome of perfectionism.
Yes, completely. Yeah, no, there's no, we can do no wrong.
Exactly. I mean, you have like the you have like the yellow Jedi lightsaber coming there from the right hand side of your screen.
Oh yes.
It's awesome. You don't need to do anything about it. I just think it's
All
kind
right.
of funny. It's like you got you got the
Right.
lightsaber. I got the I got the interesting I got the tarp that I use for blocking out the sun in the morning so that it doesn't go through the curtains as much. I mean, we are like 200% professional.
Yeah. We can. Yeah. No, we're. You know. What else would you expect from
200%
We
professional.
we have to be if we're gonna call some sacred cows. You can't slouch and then take apart something that's held to be true.
Of course not.
They'll
That's another reason we have the
people.
tarp. Our sacred cow slaughterhouse requires the use of a tarp.
Oh my god.
So, do we want to touch on the subject of online IQ tests before we
Oh yeah, sure.
before we continue with the Iliad? This sounds like a deep place to go.
Yes. Well, yeah. So I think I've probably seen one. Okay, I've seen maybe one decent nonverbal test online, maybe two.
Is it like
decent.
Are you talking like the ones that are akin to the Raven's progressive matrices, or?
Yes, yeah. The one I have qualms with the ones you can do for that are there's Mensa Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, and it was the old Denmark because I guess they changed it. I don't know, but it was the old one. I took it when I was like 16 or 15. I was in school, bored. Yeah, so obviously I'm just playing around on my phone trying to find things to do. And it had pretty like, it didn't have any kind of ambiguity. When you design a nonverbal test, it's really easy for ambiguity to arise. It's really easy for there to be multiple, basically multiple interpretations of it. That and of course the test taker has one in mind that they use as the precedent. This is what the answer is.
Pattern recognition, but then ultimately the question is, well, what's the pattern?
Right, exactly.
It's like it's like, can you come up with like what level of complexity do you want?
Yep.
And so you have to go through all these different iterations. It's like, okay, well, what's the pattern? Where sometimes you need to actually think about it even more simply in order to get to the right answer more quickly. Like, you can't overthink it, but then you can't underthink it either. You need to like calibrate your thinking to whatever the test happens to be.
Exactly, and then different items on the test will be different, or will have different interpretations. I just took the Norway one, and there's I missed two questions on it. And I looked, I was like, I don't see what's wrong with my reasoning. My answer is I can justify it pretty well. And so, I was like, okay, well, let me just, let me look up online, and it turns out, there's a conflicting answer, right? So there's two possible answers for the two that I was that I was looking at. One, I was way overthinking it. I was doing way more mental rotation than the test maker was on the problem, and I was coming up with a way bigger pattern that was better than it. Well, it was better than the one the test maker made, but it, and I checked over. Like, I can say that pretty soundly because I checked over the pattern. I thought of, like, a good. Like, I thought through it a lot to make sure I didn't make a mistake. There was no mistake. It was just the test taker had something else they were, that was in mind, and that showed, and that's like one of the big difficulties I think of, because if you think about it, nonverbal is one of the easier ones to it's one of the easier facets of intelligence to measure because it doesn't rely as much on general knowledge, right? It doesn't rely on.
You don't need to have vocabulary. You don't need to know a particular language. You can.
Yet
You just look for patterns, and that's basically it.
Right, and then the problem arises when the test taker does not think of certain patterns, which inevitably they don't. Like, they can't. Most of the people designing the test aren't.
But then when you have multiple choice, it's like sometimes none of the things seem to fit because you're thinking at a completely different level than what was intended to be tested by the test.
Right, and that's not necessarily being, having a lower IQ. You're literally, thinking in a thinking.
It's having a higher IQ. You can go past the ceiling of the test.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I've, the old IQ test DK, they changed it because the answers were released. It was quite good. I got every answer correct on that one, and I wasn't seeing other patterns that could potentially throw something off. But on this one, I've seen a few, and it's just interesting. I don't know, like, this is again only like nonverbal measure, and it's it's an online test, so how good will it be, right? Most are just garbage, but what are you gonna do? I don't know. They're fun to do sometimes if I'm like, well, not these days. I only did because I was requested to, but these days I do other things with my like the free time. I'll learn some vocab words or something like that, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know. I wonder when, because with one is made type of problems, you'd think that the test designer would be able to make would be able to. You wouldn't? Okay. Well, I'm just thinking.
At least I don't.
I'm thinking from my own perspective.
Well, I mean, you think they should, but at least I don't think that they would or do. There's a big difference. There's a very, very big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very true. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We got an interesting person here.
Who we got?
If the subject happens to be what it happens to be. But yeah, this whole, I don't know. There seems to be this cult-like obsession with using IQ as some sort of essentially a male member measuring contest, and at least to the best of my knowledge, that's except at the low end of the spectrum, that wasn't actually ever the intention at the beginning of IQ test administration.
Yeah. Like I would say, when when IQ tests were designed, like I'm pretty sure, like I could be wrong. I don't know much about like the history, but I think they were just to figure out like developmentally disabled people, right? That's what it was trying to spot.
Well, at the very beginning, that was kind of the idea. Is okay, we had these standards of what would be expected, and then you normalize it to a population, and then you can actually see where you might have people that are truly deficient.
Right.
And then people got the idea, and for instance, the military, to use it just for categorization, and you ultimately wound up having people that would be essentially, if I recall correctly, below 80 IQ points were designated dull, then 80 to like 120 were designated normal, and then 120 plus were designated high. And then then there basically became more variations on the theme as time went on.
So the military is quite historically is a big. I mean that's what Susanna Liliana said on Quora, that like they keep track of people who score certain scores within. Where is she from again? I forget.
About 100 miles away from me.
My geography is
Finland.
Is not Finland? Okay. She's in Finland?
Yeah.
Oh crap! Okay, I was discounting Finland. I was like, what country is 100 miles? I was like, because for some reason okay, interesting. I hadn't like connected that, but interesting. Yeah, she said they keep track of people who score certain.
Mm-hmm.
And do they so they just do that? They do that within Finland, right? That must have happened here.
They do it many places. People. It's interesting because people with high IQs are deemed higher risk assets.
Yeah.
Mostly due to the fact that lots of times people with higher IQ prefer to march to the beat of their own drum. And so, more likely to question authority, things of that nature. And in a very authoritarian construct that could blow up if all of a sudden someone with high IQ decides, hey, I'm not going to participate in doing this or that or the other thing because of whatever.
Right.
And so you wind up, it's interesting because you wind up having people, I guess you could say, being somewhat disconcerted and concerned about it. I mean, like when I wind up going into my mandatory military service, which I'm going to wind up doing later. I'm expecting to have something similar happening to me as happened to my own.
When you go to military service?
As what happened to my dad, yes.
Mm-hmm. And did that happen to your uncle as well, or great uncle?
Mm-hmm.
Was that?
Well, I mean, that was a little bit different situation with him because it was during a pretty, shall we say, intense period of the Cold War. Mm-hmm. So deals were made and so on that allowed him to circumvent many of the rules and protocols that would otherwise have been in place. But with my dad, it was pretty normal treatment of high scorers.
Interesting.
I mean, he didn't go and do anything particularly special. He didn't want to remain in the military, so they just put him through officers training, and that was that. He became a lieutenant, and that was it.
Interesting. I see.
But they did do a mental health assessment for him, and they did put him aside for extra screening because they were, concerned. You scored so high on this test, are you crazy? Kind of a thing.
Oh my God, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Are you crazy?
Well, here's the
Wow.
thing, right? One of the questions
So
on the
much
test is,
stigma.
do you feel like you've had a band around your head? And he answered yes. And there were a whole bunch of such questions, but the band around your head was the one that uh, I'm trying to remember. I don't think it was too high of an officer. It may have been, or actually, it may have been a colonel, a reasonably high officer. Went and asked him about and said, okay, well, what's up with this? Why did you say that you have felt like you have a band around your head? I mean, you completely blew the.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're stupid, but why do you say that
Right,
you have a?
right,
Is like we can't possibly say that you're just marking off A B A B A C A D whatever. Uh,
right. Of course.
it's like so explain this, and he said, well, sir, I wear a helmet.
That's hilarious.
So
Oh my god.
so
Oh my god.
So it's like, yeah, you got the band around your head that holds the helmet in place. Like, I did not come to the military to lie. Okay, and that was that.
Oh my god. That's funny.
Conclusion was my dad was not crazy, just very honest.
Right. Okay, can I send? I'm going to send you this link. Can I send it? And it's the question I was looking at, and I want to like show an example. Like I want to point out the different ways you can approach this sort of thing. Just so
Well, put it into the
know,
chat. Put it into the chat.
because we personally know, since we know what's going on, right? Like
I don't know anything. I just stream. I don't know anything. I just stream, and then I sometimes like help other people with their educational problems and stuff, but I'm completely clueless.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, there are I think I see like at least there's one interpretation that they deem correct, but I see three. If you have the problem pulled up.
I don't have the problem pulled up. Could you put it into the YouTube chat?
I put it in Discord. Should I put it in?
I can't open Discord chat right now, otherwise it's going to wind up changing the parameters of the. Yeah.
True. Okay, I'll send you the link through WhatsApp.
Just put it into the YouTube chat.
Oh yeah. Hey, good point. Okay, let me see.
And everyone can see what it is you're referring to.
Yep. Let's see. Okay, go to YouTube.
I'll get more central nervous system stimulant.
Paste. So. Oh, it looks like Thomas is here, or he was here.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew, awesome. Good to have him here. But yeah, so it's this problem. I put it in the chat. And let me go back to it. I'm just closing out of tabs that I have open. All right. So with this problem, the thing with Raven's matrices is you can approach them kind of unidirectionally, right? All right, you can approach them from different just different angles, right? So I will go through, two ways that I approach this problem. Are two potential ways I see to approach this problem that are incorrect, but I don't, so when you're approaching Raven's matrices, let's say there's like two modalities of thought, right? Let's say there's inductive reasoning, where you find which one doesn't fit, There's sequential reasoning where you go from left to right, say in the boxes. You like, okay, this goes to this, goes to this.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do sequential left to right or up to down. That's possible.
Yeah, left to right, up to down, down to up, right to left, diagonally.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You can jump over boxes. You can. Yeah, I mean, there's so much you can do.
Yeah, there's so many.
You can add to. You can take away from. You can.
But
you can dig around with this stuff. Yeah.
Primarily. Oh yeah, taking away. Yeah, exactly. So that's big on this problem. So if we look at this problem, so initially the first thing I'm going to do is look at the left column, right? Because that has the least noise going on. It's the simplest. It seems like it might set some sort of precedent of what's going to happen. And if you recall my, a 2 days ago maybe, how I was talking about with, mixture problems, right? I was talking about how I don't think of mixing two solutions with different percentages of solute. I don't think of that as, I think of it as a tug of war, like one's pulling the other one. Right?
I don't see the correct answer here. I'm sorry.
So
well, maybe I do. No, I don't.
Yeah, so the first thing I look at is I see, okay, it feels like there's up and down, and that's kind of like negative and positive, right? That's how I would look at it. As up is positive, and they're pulling away from each other. So it makes sense in the left column. If you look at the bottom left too, it's like, okay, there's the left column, the bottom two of that column. It's like, okay, well, there's the two on the bottom, two on the top. They cancel, right? And then I look at the other one, and I'm like,
if you go nothing, up, down.
Yeah, exactly. And in the second, yeah, and that's another way. And in the second one, so okay, yeah. So I have a third way of approaching it now. Jesus.
Yeah, and then there's the other way of looking at like what is the net sum of things below or above the line.
Yeah,
and I mean,
right.
you can just keep on.
So if we look at the column, the second column,
I mean, you can literally circle jerk about this thing until the end of the world, and
that's true.
And impute all sorts of different patterns because ultimately you only have 9 squares. But yeah.
Right, but can I just say this just shortly? I will be quick about it.
Well, sure.
If you look in the second column, obviously we're introduced to a new square, right? The bigger one, and we can we don't necessarily know how many little ones fit in a big one. But if we're using the same method I was looking at, or I was thinking of before, we'll see that, okay, so there's 2 little squares that cancel, 2 little squares that cancel, a big square that cancels, and another big square that cancels. And it looks like there's a little square, and that leaves us with a little square on the top and a big square on bottom. So, and then the answer is negative 2 little squares. So I'm like, okay, then a big square is equal to 3 little squares. That's kind of the assumption I make from that. I'm like, okay, so so then I look at the bottom left answer, the top left answer choice. If we plug that one in, you'll get, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, so 2 big squares cancel, little square cancel. You have a big square, a little square on top, and a big square on the bottom, so you have +1 and -3. So then the answer goes up to be -2, which is correct. If you look at the top right column, our top right, there you go. That it seems like that is a plausible answer. It's very defendable. Another way you could look at it is symmetry. You could say, oh, each one needs a pair, right? Each one needs a reverse of itself. Obviously, flipped horizontal, over the horizontal axis. So if we look at the left, obviously they look like it looks like a toothbrush, right? So it's like, okay, there's a bottom one and there's a top one. Those cancel. And then if we look at the middle right square and the middle bottom square, those two cancel, right? They pair up. So this is inductive reasoning here. And then we'll look and we'll be and the top left square is reflexive, right? Like it's since it's 0, it doesn't need to add and subtract. It's right there already at 0. It's its own reciprocal. And then we'll look at, okay, let's see. So far we have two things that paired up and one that's a reciprocal of itself, and then we have the top on the top row we have the two squares on the right, and in the middle row we have the square in the middle, and we're like, okay, these two, I'm gonna say that these three squares plus the blank square need to add up to be 0. So let's so then I would add the squares together, and I'd be like, okay. I've already determined that I think that it's 3, I've already determined I think it's 3 squares for a big square, etc. And you can just keep, that's a way you look at it. There's that's done. I'm done after that, but because there is another way I could describe, but you guys get the point. You can, you see that's a great example of this, the flaws with this sort of, with these sorts of tests. I noticed this happening when test takers tried to design difficult items, or just when they just tried to design difficult items, they lose their ability to the ambiguity. It seems they seem blind to it, and it's usually along these sorts of questions that you get wrong, and you're like, what, I'm like, what did I do wrong? I had I didn't pick anything that I didn't think was the answer, or I didn't guess was correct. Not guess, but reason through. So, it's a pretty it's a pretty good example. That problem's a perfect example of the sort of ambiguity that could arise with these sorts of test items. I'm someone who's obviously quite interested in testing, and I like test design. Whether it be for any type of test,
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be succinct. It's supposed to mean something. When you take any sort of standardized test, it should be a good reflection of what it's trying to measure. For grad school exams, it's how prepared are they for grad school? How able are they with higher abstract thinking? High school ones, it's okay. How well do they understand high school level material, etc. With this sort of thing, it's supposed to measure how well you can reason. Obviously, it's not. There's a flaw here, right? You can read it. You can have perfectly fine reasoning and still get penalized. I don't know. It's really interesting. It's really interesting because this test is apparently well updated. They keep it up to date. They try to revise the test answers. The answer options have changed over the years. This is something that someone really tries to keep up to date, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's there's just kind of this some glaring flaws, depending on whatever. But it's just interesting to me. I think I could have designed a much better problem.
I mean, all right. So I'm gonna take a guess as to what they would want it to be.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's either going to be top right or middle bottom, and based on the fact that there's demented logic at play. Like literally based on the fact that there's something demented about this whole thing.
Right.
I think they would probably want top right.
And it is top right.
But it's demented because it's wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean that's the thing that bothers me. I mean it's like the computer programming test that we were given in one of my classes, that I just looked at it. And it's kind of like one of these things, you look at something and then you wonder, because what we wound up doing is we were given a task, and it was written out on a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper. And we were all given the task, and we were expected to write a program to do whatever it was that the thing said. And I'm here reading the task, and it's like, when is this thing going to burst into flames and I'm going to see like this, you know, this character with horns appearing saying "Welcome to Hell," because the actual parameters, the criteria for completion of the task were so.
And this is what's fun. So there's some people who got to see they're like every other problem has a mirror image, right? Is that the logic they were using? You think, or was it just
Except there is no mirror image, but.
Oh god! Even that logic, there you have to take a hit with that.
You have to flip the two things on the left if you even want to come close to that. But then even if you do flip the two things on the left, the proportion is you need a different size square. Doesn't work. Complete and total horse crap is completely wrong. Right?
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, exactly.
I mean that's like. So then what I wound up doing in this computer classes is I mean, just like I wound up rewriting a homework assignment and getting myself into a deep load of trouble for that, I wound up rewriting a test, and oh boy, was that ever fun. Dealing with the repercussions of that.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh, it was horrible. You know, more often than not, I wound up teaching the programming class. Not more often than not, about, you know, a reasonable proportion of the time. Often enough. You know, if the teacher didn't want to do something, she'd just sit down and I'd answer all the questions. And then there was this one guy who didn't do anything, you know, except for, you know, he had his own website, and he's like, I'm not going to turn in anything. The teacher knows that I can program. And then he just blatantly disregarded every single assignment. Or he was a huge smart aleck in terms of turning in the assignment. I mean, there was no way. He was an ENTP. He was an ENTP. He was pretty awesome. So I just left him alone. You know, I let him do his own thing, and he was happy. Then you have like your handful of ISTJs that were in there that were just like sticklers. Oh, you need to do this. Oh, you need to do. Oh, that was fun.
Oh God.
But that cancer was some. You know, I'd say probably most of the people, like, maybe. No, I'd say probably the top third of that class could have made it to Mensa.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
I'd say top third of the programming class could have made it to Mensa.
Yeah, I would expect the same maybe of my. It depends, you know, if you get into certain classes, you'll have just. And you're at your university, right? So the average is like 15 points higher or something. And yeah, so
and there are certain certain ways of having to think about problems and solving them and so on. But I just find it to be. I find the whole thing to be kind of weird.
Well, it's something that frustrates me, because when I go to take a test of any kind, I'm expecting me to be against myself, right? Like I'm testing myself. I'm going up against myself. Either I know it or I don't, kind of thing, right? But not me going up. I don't want to be bumping heads against the test maker and kind of figuring out, you know, feeling out his incompetency, right? Like I don't want that. That's you know, that's like not the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, you know, it's like I ran into that in school, of course. You know, especially if I ran into it like a few days ago on online homework that said one answer and then it was blatantly the other answer, and their explanations, you know, explanations like, no, this answer's right, and I was like, that's what I picked, but you counted me wrong. It's like, It's like, what? It's unfair. It feels unfair. And I hate when things aren't, aren't fair or unjust.
Well, here's the thing, right? If people are too busy thinking only sequentially, if that is literally all they're capable of doing, if you think sequentially, and if your definition of smart means being able to skip steps and not screw up, then that means it's going to take you an incredibly long time, if you ever do get to it, to being able to understand if something is fair or not on a more meta level, unless you're dealing with like preschool or kindergarten level stuff.
Yeah.
And ultimately, and if this is too much of a leap, let me know, right? And I'm not saying that it necessarily will be, but I'm just saying that it might not be fair of me to make this analogy.
Okay.
But from the best of my understanding, very little is actually taught at school. I mean, like multiple grades, like basically all of middle school is essentially repeating the same crap.
Yeah.
From grade to grade to grade. And then like maybe when you get to junior level in high school, you get something new. But at least in terms of things that require, thought, they don't ever actually force you to think more. They might force you to in other classes memorize more material or what have you. But they don't.
Right. That's very true.
But they don't actually advance you forward in terms of what sorts of thinking they require.
No, yeah, that's completely fair.
And ultimately, I mean, it might be a little bit higher than preschool or kindergarten level thinking, but not much.
Right.
And a lot of what constitutes basic life, a lot of what constitutes, things that are reasonably are reasonably expected to be reasonable expectations of people, basically are about a fourth or fifth grade, maybe third grade in some aspect level of thinking, and basically a third to fifth grade level of competency is expected, and then the rest of the grades are just repetitions, are just more and more iterations of the same, as opposed to increasing people's
when you need to I mean, I don't know. I really can't speak for students as a whole, but it loses more meaning. The more I repeat something, the more I'm like, well, I need to just get on with it. Like, I get it. Let's go. Why are we still doing this? Like, I stopped, I'm like, well, what the hell is going on? I stopped, really caring about the subject and stuff. Because the class gets so boring when you do the same thing from year to year. And then they increment it up. They'll increment it up. Maybe they'll get a little bit more detail. But it's the same thing. Like, why don't you just start us with detail, right? Why don't you just make it,
And here's the thing, right? School is presumably designed for average students. It's presumably designed for average students, but the thing that I've noticed is there really is no such thing as average. I mean, if you go and do a weighted average of different aspects of things, and then you call certain things equivalent to one another, then you can get an idea of a particular distribution. But because cognitive profiles differ from person to person, going and expecting everyone to go into a particular cookie cutter mold is kind of an exercise in futility, unless your goal is homogenization as opposed to education.
Right.
But then so many, I would dare say that in terms of looking at it as to how education or how schooling works as a system. I mean, calling it education is kind of just being a little too gracious.
Very true.
Schooling, it seems to kind of feed upon itself, it's like you get people involved in the system, and then people wind up having a certain sets of expectations, and then the people that go into teaching wind up perpetuating them, if for no other reason than, because it's some sort of a societal tradition.
Right.
And
yeah.
And so you wind up getting this tradition of mediocrity. You wind up getting this tradition of going through and repeating these safe-sounding things, If you never have to actually think, but you just
Right.
regurgitate these things that, they make you part of society.
Right.
They make you a part of people that have achieved a particular certification, be that, GED or high school degree or what have you. I mean, what do I know? I got my GED like a couple weeks before my 20th birthday. But at least from what I've seen, it's I know I didn't get a perfect. I know I didn't get a perfect score on my GED. By the way, do you know what happened?
On the GED?
No, I didn't. Score? No, I didn't. Do you know what happened?
What happened?
There was one section that had wrong questions. And,
really?
And rather than actually answering them, I rewrote them.
Oh boy. That's always fun. That's like me taking the EOC and just talking about how poorly designed it is. Basically, that was my essay.
Yeah.
I did not answer their question at all. And then
I mean, I did the calculation. Yeah. I knew what I needed to do to pass, right? And I knew that if I get these ones wrong, it's not going to actually impact.
Right, it's not going to hurt you.
It's not going to impact anything. I still get my GED, so I was like, okay, I can actually go and perhaps correct the test. Now, I didn't go back and take another GED to see if they did correct it. I mean, I don't even know do they do different versions.
Yeah, they definitely do different versions.
Oh, they do? Okay. So it's like you can't go and give your friends answers.
Similar content, but different versions. Because I mean, I'm assuming because then I have the answers to the GED.
Yeah, but I'm actually trying to think though. Like if you take the GED, like what requires more effort, taking the GED or knowing all the answers to the GED?
Well, that depends on who you are, I suppose. What's harder? I mean, it would be hard to it would be difficult or it would be annoying maybe to memorize the answers. I wouldn't want to do that. But
I mean, I suppose people can just do their normal cheating strategies, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not like people actually stop them.
No, I would be surprised. Yeah. There's I showed actually, speaking of problems wrong on tests and stuff, showed Matt an old SAT problem. It was a coin on top of another coin that had
round and round the coin, that thing.
Yeah, it had a third of the radius, right? So it has a third of the circumference.
Okay.
And so it starts on top, and it's the coin rolls around the other one. This one has a third of the radius. The small one goes around it, and they're like, how many times did the small coin rotate? And so the SAT, I think they had the right answer written, maybe, but it wasn't counted as the right answer.
So basically, you had it goes 1, 2, 3 times around the actual circumference, but then one more time to go around the actual. Yeah.
Right. Because the point of reference is not, flat. It's circular.
And then people just thought, okay, all we have to do is flatten this into a line and then show it rolling, and then we don't take into
Yep.
account the fact that it had to go around the
Mm-hmm.
circle again.
Correct. Yep. And that's what the test. It's the test taker. It seems to be short-sightedness that sort of precipitates like that problem was a mess. Like that problem I showed before, like it's a mess. I can see so many ways to approach it. Many of the right answers that I
the
like,
rolling of the rolling of the circles, the rolling of the coins or whatever it was. That I mean, there's not more than one way to approach that, or maybe there is, but there's not more than one possible correct answer.
That's true. Very true. It is one correct answer. It is a little worse, and it's also on the SAT instead of some test some guy designed. So yeah.
Yeah, I assume that there are more people that take the SAT than take the Mensa entrance exams.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, that would kind of make sense, because you normally wouldn't take the exams unless you think that you have a chance of actually getting in.
And people take the SAT who don't give a shit about it
all
the time.
Because you need to, yeah.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to.
I mean, you don't actually.
If you want to go,
if you want to go to college, you do.
Yeah. All right, and so many people want to. So
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily.
More people want to go to college than want to get into it.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend it though, but if you need to get into fields like engineering or medicine or what have you, then yeah, bite the bullet.
Yeah.
But realize that a computer's going to be taking over your job anyway.
Yes.
Just be cognizant of that.
Indeed. But yeah, like, I don't know. It's you'd think they would really be careful. Like, they would triple check these sorts of things when they're designing tests. Right? Like, how? Is it just people trusting what the other person was thinking and not giving it their due effort? Or is it just many people making the same mistake? I don't know. At least with this test that I showed you guys, it's probably one guy. Yeah, it's probably one guy who's been developing it over the years and changing it, and he gets the data because people take it, so he gets the average score and all that, and that's how he's trying to calculate this sort of thing. There's some population, and he gets feedback, and he obviously cares. Like, the test has been updated throughout the years and changed, so obviously someone is. That's either a task given to them through Mensa or something like that.
Yeah. And what they normally do is they look to see which questions are or contribute to the discrepancy from one result to another. Like when you go and you normalize them.
Right, which questions are common in this?
And if there are some that have many people that are missing them, or many people that are getting them right, or both, however that works, then obviously those are the ones that are more determining, and so of course they're going to flush out useless questions. Hopefully they're going to flush out useless questions.
They left some, but God, yeah. Interestingly enough, there's another test called the JC test of induction. It is an inductive reasoning test, and I've noticed that if I take it and I take it 2 separate times and I interpret sometimes it is like there's like questions where it's literally a coin flip. I'm like, I could interpret it this way or I could interpret it this way. And both ways are analogous. Like, it's sometimes it's just your frame of reference, like which rotation are you doing first, because they both work, and it'll be a coin flip, and I'll just get I'll get a range of scores, right? I've taken it like twice,
and that's why it's just not. A lot of these things are just completely not fair, and
Agreed.
And so there are things that are more statistically verifiable than other things. But then I this whole situation, I think, is beyond me. I mean, I can put all the pieces together and I can understand all of them, but the how everything actually works.
Right. It comes to it, doesn't it?
You know, it makes me want to just down a bottle of Ipecac syrup and.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell? What happened? How? Right.
It's like I was telling Caleb the other day. Sometimes there's something so inane that you just go and you stare at the wall, and you're just like waiting for sulfurous fumes to come. You're just like waiting for the sulfurous fumes to come. You're waiting for the thing to jump out at you and say, "Welcome to hell." I've decided to finally let you know that you've been here all along, and I know that might be a little bit overkill in terms of what I'm saying, because there are good aspects to life as well. But then,
of course,
specifically for an INTJ, dealing with that is like the suffering part of life is not relatively that big a deal, but then recognizing that the suffering is largely needless.
Yeah, that is the crux. Is like
it's like what God, it's like futility on top of everything else.
Yeah, and it's like, come on.
And I don't know if maybe other types have an easier job dealing with that, but specifically, just the the realization that often the answers are they're staring you in the face, or not staring you in the face, or not, or in the case of the IQ test, sometimes not even present.
Yeah.
And then you just watch everyone go in the wrong direction like sheep, and you're completely helpless to stop the rampage.
Like, well,
it's like, no, just don't do that.
Right. It's like, come on, like it's like, come on, this is avoidable. Stop.
It's like this world would be much more enjoyable were you, for instance, the Joker character from the Batman movie.
Right. Yeah. There you go. There you go.
And the one that just likes to watch the world burn like that. Like that would make having that kind of an attitude might make life a little more tolerable. I don't know. Trying to comprehend how something so asinine can exist, says Jack. Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's like you do comprehend it. You do understand the mechanisms behind it. You do understand, it's essentially statistical biology, right?
Yeah, and inherently as well, like even if it's one of these things where you can cognitively understand it, but not empathize with it. You know what I mean? Like you can't, it's like I would never do this sort of thing, right?
Yes, and then there are lots of people that would probably say the same thing about me. Like if there's somebody that if you're cutting a piece of wood, and every angle, you just set it at a 45, and then use a plane to fix it. It's like, what in the world? Why? That's how I've done it for 35 years.
No, that's that's
no.
bad.
No.
It's like, wow, how much cumulative time has been wasted.
Or, the problem I wound up dealing with yesterday and the previous day, raw sewage does not defy the laws of gravity. We'll just... I'm going to make this categorical statement. Raw sewage does not defy the laws of gravity.
Oh boy.
Now, I have a very good reason for saying this, as I'm sure you're...
I can think of some ways where that sort of lesson would be learned.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Raw sewage does not define the laws of gravity.
Oh man. Oh man.
Let's just put it this way. I don't mind. I really don't mind being up to my elbows in raw sewage. Unless the reason I'm up to my elbows in raw sewage is due to the incompetence of somebody who same time last year, in the middle of the same kind of a rainstorm as what we've been having, shifted the blame to the city.
Oh boy.
As opposed to his own inadequacies of gravitational understanding.
Oh god.
So like, I don't mind solving problems, but if I'm absolutely and positively aware that some very simple fix could have averted an entire disaster.
Yeah,
that's the element that gets me, and that's what would make something hell for an INTJ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, because rather than laughing at something, I'm just sitting there fuming, wondering just how.
Right.
It's like you had one thing to do, one thing only. There's one thing that needed to be done in order to make this project work, and instead of sloping the pipe down, you sloped it up. It's like
that's what I was picturing. Oh my god. Was someone not the correct disposal?
Yeah. It's like, raw sewage does not defy the laws of gravity. You know, just because you get a little bit of sewer gas doesn't change anything.
Not pressure. Oh boy. Oh boy. Sewage snorkel, says Jack.
Yeah, well, yeah. And literally, like that stupid toilet snorkel thing. Like the toilet snorkel, you're huffing raw sewage. It's like, I got to do that for 2 days.
And it relies on that sewage not defying, you know.
Yes, the toilet snorkel actually relies.
We need, if it doesn't, if the sewage is coming, if the sewage is acting in some other way, you know, the toilet snorkel would not, you know, this wonderful invention wouldn't have come to be.
Yeah. So, I don't even know what to, I'm at a loss.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's really hard for us to vet ourselves. I'm not talking about personally, but just like as people as a whole, like to vet ourselves of like kind of sometimes like obvious errors. I don't know, like just in general, you'll see it all around. And the thing is, I think that just sorts back to in general how well people. It's like, you know, how good are they at the liberal arts? How well do they understand their environment? Well, you know, are they able to manipulate it in a way that, you know, that would be commensurate with the goals you would have?
But does having sewage pipes pointed the right way have anything to do with the liberal arts? I mean, I suppose you can always make those connections, but it's like
a little. It's like, well, it's just like having that basic intuition of how how things should be.
Yeah, but like,
that some people actually don't have.
I know that if I grab a hold of this cup and I do this, I can expect the liquid to go down into my mouth. This cup is holding my liquid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, it's gone. But now, I would expect whatever liquid to be in the cup. Oh, there's still a drop. To start coming out, right? So,
very true.
I would assume, I might be wrong here, but I would assume that recognizing such a pattern might be relevant to pipes and sewage too.
Well, yeah. Well, it's the thing is we have our assumptions of the environment and how things will work, and what sort of is going to happen, and that, and what you know. For example, I was talking with someone, and this person was smart, quite smart. This person, they were wondering, it's like one of those things that it's like it feels so simple that you can't explain, right? Like, well, why would they do that? An example. I'm reading. Gravity still applies to sewage. Yes, we need a great work of art to understand this principle. But like, for example, they were wondering why planets are kind of tend to bulge at the equator, like why that is.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of orthogonal to the rotational axis. They're bigger that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, how would they not be? I was like, well, it's going faster, and if you think of a ball spin, if you've seen a ball spin in the air, have you ever seen a kickball? When someone puts a lot of spin on it, it warps, right? Like you can feel this.
You're essentially
happening.
having a partially supported orbit of all the different particles around the center of mass,
right?
Or rather, technically around all the others, but yeah,
right. But yeah,
but it can be reduced to a partially supported orbit around a center of mass.
Yeah. And yeah, so I was like, well, and this is a very smart person. Okay, like they're really smart. It's like, wait, what? Like, why didn't what happened? And it's this sort of. It just happens like quite often with different sorts of things. You're like, well, wait, what? What do you mean? Of course, the sewage pipe has to go this way. It's like, oh, of course, this thing happens, and it's like your expectations of what people are going to do. They get lowered. As time goes on. Essentially,
I'm sure. And yeah, a lot of it I think is probably G-loaded, but then a lot of it, like I don't have a sufficient explanation for it. I really don't. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from or where it doesn't come from. It kind of eludes me.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. Like sometimes when questions are designed to be tricky in a certain way, or there's some detail I missed. Like I'll make silly errors that I shouldn't have done, or I get tripped. I fall into it. Right. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how it is. So just look at it in a cursory way. But if you really,
and there's something that actually gets missed. Yeah, I mean that's possible.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's just kind of a detail. But if you're putting your full attention to this sort of thing, it kind of escapes me.
Let's do something more peaceful.
Yeah.
I'll start reading.
Alrighty.
I'll start reading. So this is Helen basically telling Paris, or this is after Helen told Paris that basically you don't match up to Menelaus in Book 3 of the Iliad, lines 514 and following. She ended, to whom Paris thus replied. This is in blank verse, by the way. Ah, Helen, wound me not with taunts severe. Me Menelaus by Minerva's aid hath vanquished now who may hereafter him. We also have our gods, but let us love, for never since the day when thee I bore from pleasant Lacedaemon o'er the waves to Cronce's fair isle, and first enjoyed thy beauty, loved I as I love thee now, or felt such sweetness of intense desire. He spake and sought his bed, whom followed soon Jove's daughter, reconciled to his embrace.
Which line are we on again? Can you say?
That was in between lines 514 and 525. So basically,
and it's book 3.
Mm-hmm. So
Okay.
so
Okay,
basically, the context is Paris fought Menelaus. Paris narrowly escaped death, ran away. Paris had enticed away the wife of Menelaus, Helen, and then still, even after being a coward and so on, manages to, with full understanding that he went and lost an outright duel, still winds up getting the girl, so to speak. That just that whole dynamic kind of in terms of my idea of justice, it irks me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right. I know, I get that this is, it's an epic poem, and so all sorts of liberties could have been taken and whatever, but that, I wonder if there are people that read that and sympathize with Paris. Like, I literally wonder if people are like, well, whatever he can get away with, he should be able to get away with, and, Helen should love him for it anyway. I really don't know, but it just seemed it seems to me to be, like, I'm trying to figure out under what circumstances does that actually happen in real life? Under what set of circumstances? I mean, although it doesn't really say, because she basically says, you don't match up with Menelaus, and still I'm going to go to bed with you. It's like, was she afraid? Was she horny? Was she, like, what?
So, wait, can you paint the because I've sort of only been I haven't been caught up with the Iliad. Can you paint just a short summary of so what I understand is she picks Paris over Menelaus, right? But
and Paris kind of absconds with her before the book actually begins. Paris absconds with her, and that's the whole reason for the Trojan War. The whole reason for the Trojan War is Menelaus's wife was absconded with by Paris. Mm-hmm. So Menelaus is a Greek. Paris is from Troy. Both are very high ranking. Paris is the son of, I can't even think, is it Priam? So basically he's a prince, and then Menelaus is basically this self-made, really, really strong man kind of a person, and then Paris has been essentially living his entire life in a lap of luxury, and out of
so she chooses
the circumstances, and you wind up having scholars actually debating this whole thing. It's like, well, how much was it her choice, how much it was just that they had an affair and she got wrapped up in passion, or whatever it may have been. but basically, she goes with Paris for whatever reason. Then Menelaus gets incensed. Um, no, Agamemnon is there. Achilles is there. Everyone goes to help Menelaus beat Paris, and incidentally, it's like the Greeks beat the Trojans, or the end story with the with a twister at the end of ultimately the Aeneid. Right, you wind up having the Odyssey taking place at one point, and then the Aeneid taking place at another point, or kind of simultaneously.
Right.
But anyhow, for the scope of the Iliad, the question is okay, where is Helen's head in all of this? Well, like, what is her role? What is she thinking? What is she feeling? How is she acting? And at least in terms of my understanding of the situation, she's one giant enigma. It's like you can't really tell where she's going to stand because she's fickle. And still apparently, due to her beauty, she's worth fighting for. Now, and maybe this has to do with me being who I am, but I have the idea that, if you're going to be that fickle, you're not worth fighting for.
Oh, well, yeah. No.
It's like, if you're going to play idiot games, I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me personally, like, basically, the girl's, level of attraction will go down if she starts doing sort of these, like, if they start, acting kind of in a dishonest, fickle way, or not being consistent, or
or trying to make you jealous by flirting with other people. It's like, what?
Right,
it's like, what kind of stupid? Is like, do you not think that's completely transparent? Is that not like, no?
Right. Well, one thing about certain guys, or just guys, I guess I'll say as a whole, there's, some seem more, it's like a spectrum, right? Some seem more and more like, essentially like they're willing to be controlled. They're willing to, they're willing to kind of like be around someone who's really inconsistent, and they're kind of willing to like have their toes stepped on and kind of just have the other person have their way with them. Like, there's
so they're thinking with the head that's like 70 centimeters below the other head.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I guess it has to be something like that. I mean, maybe there's some sort of like emotional sustenance sort of thing as well, not just a sexual pull, but. It's really interesting. Like, most people, I think, have had some sort of exposure to this. If you have a friend, have you ever like been on the outside of a third party in a relationship, for example?
You mean like the third wheel, like when you used to have a friend, and then all of a sudden he gets a girlfriend, and then he starts spending all the time with her.
I don't necessarily mean as a third wheel, potentially so, but kind of like, I mean, that would be a good place to see it in action. But like, if a friend was like, complaining about their relationship or something, and they're just saying, you're like, well, why are you dating that person? Like, that's that's my question. I'm like, well, why don't you? Right.
So you're talking as sort of like an unbiased observer.
Yeah, like a third party.
Wondering why in the world are you doing backflips for this two-faced, disingenuous piece of poop?
Yeah, it's like, what, right? It's like, what the hell are you? Like, this person's treating you poorly. It's just obvious. You're obviously not happy with that, and you're just gonna sit there and take it. Like, that's okay with you? You're like, there's not even any concerted effort to like make change. If you're like, oh, the person's worth it, let's like address the problems. There's no assertion. It's kind of just like hiding your feelings and inventing them to your friends. Sort of like, it's like, is that like, are you that pathetic is my question usually. It's like, is that just okay? Like, that's how you are. You're like, it's I don't know.
But then again, there are certain expectations that we have, and like, some people don't. some people mature in different aspects of their lives differently than others, I suppose. See, now I'm finally
That's
getting
very
rid of
true.
my visceral reaction to this whole thing, and how it doesn't make sense, and trying to be dispassionately somehow able to analyze it. And ultimately, it seems to me that it might have to do with an element of being immature in a certain aspect, even though you can be a good leader of men or what have you.
Right. Yeah. No. That's it's kind of it's similar to having like intellectual biases, right? Like, oh, I'm better at this than I am at that. I'm better at this and that. I'm a faster runner than I am a swimmer, whatever, what have you. Even in like really great people that are like incredibly accomplished in one realm, a lot of times there are some deficits in others, not necessarily related to their competence at all. Or it's not like, oh well, they're competent in this area, so they don't have enough room to be good in that area. It's like, no. Just like when they're like, oh, they're smart, so they're probably bad socially, or oh, they don't understand emotions. Like, it's like, well, no.
Well,
But
I'm bad socially, even though
but
I
it
do
doesn't
understand
preclude them.
emotions.
But it doesn't preclude them from being, yeah. Well, you don't have the FE teddy bear, so.
No, I don't.
And,
I have the SE
so,
sledgehammer.
SE sledge. That's funny. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. But yeah, like, I know, like, one of my friends in real life. This is him. Like, he's very emotional. He's smart. He's really smart. He's extremely successful in school. He's going to an amazing school. And his girlfriend wears him like a ring around her finger, right? Like, she just controls him. She has all the control. Then he's like, she just can just play him like a fiddle.
Oh, that's horrible.
And it's like, bro,
that's horrible.
Like, I'll sit there and we're hanging out. We haven't, she's like, oh yeah, no, it's. She's like, oh yeah, I miss you, blah blah blah, sort of thing. Even if they've hung out like every day, right, or something like that. And he's like, can I come? I don't know. They were having some little, like, it's like argument over nothing. Basically, it's not an argument. It's just her being discontent with, like, nothing. There's no good reason. You can't actually use logic and reasoning. It kind of gets thrown out the window. You have to look from a really emotional lens. Something that I've done my whole life, so it was really easy for me to see what was going on. And I told it to him, like, well, like, she wants to exercise control. Like, she's trying to have control. And like, eventually, take it or leave it, but like, eventually you have to kind of stand up for yourself and like have some mettle, have some will of your own and stuff like that. But maybe not anytime soon. This otherwise extremely successful person is, well, I mean, it's their relationship isn't bad or anything. I don't mean to give up that impression, but he's kind of whipped. Is the point?
Well, in that case, things are just going to have to get bad enough for him to learn to not put up with it, I suppose.
Right, exactly.
So, precipitate a crisis.
Oh, yes. There we go.
See, there goes the sledgehammer again. Or maybe it's the TE bulldozer, I don't know.
Could be both combined, yeah. You got a whole construction crew out there. Just
destruction crew.
Yeah. Demolition crew, yeah.
Yes.
It's like, oh my god. Yeah, but I don't know. Me personally, it could not be me. Like, it's just, I can't. Like, I've been in a relationship in the past, and I recognized if someone, if said person was trying to like manipulate me into, because their emotions, because they feel uncomfortable with a certain person, but for no good reason. And they're like, oh, don't hang out with that person ever. Like, don't be friends with them. They're like, well, no, I'm not gonna do that. Just because you are irrational. I'm not. Like, I promise. Like, there's nothing. Nothing is going on. That, this is purely platonic, and I don't even see them, outside of school, sort of thing. You guys can paint the picture. I'm not going to go into details. I'm not gonna remove a friend, because you're uncomfortable in some way, like because you're irrational. Like that's a place for you where you need to grow, not me. I don't need to be making changes. You're the one who needs to figure out how to deal with that sort of thing, instead of just no, I can't have it. Let it be gone, etc. Like that's how I. But interestingly, that reminds me of a comment Dennis Matei had said, and he said that actually, like, girls want control, right? And they said that part of a guy's attractiveness is determined by how willing they are to kind of fall into the girl's games. Like how attraction is generated when the guy does what the girl wants, and the girl feels safe around the guy and has control. I mean, it sorts back to environmental control.
I would say certain level of being able to have certain expectations filled.
Right. Yeah.
But ultimately, it's having those kinds of dynamics in place is very unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's not attraction. That's like attraction to a man as a girlfriend, as opposed to as a boyfriend or a husband or what have you.
Right. Yeah. And so yeah. Like, let me see. It's like called willingness. Some author called it willingness to emote. Let me go to it.
So willingness to be one of the girls.
Yeah. Essentially.
I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that necessarily. That's the domain of only women to emote things, but or right. To emote period. But it's just that the way that it seems like they often expect it is they say between the lines when describing what they want. Essentially, they're essentially describing a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that even if that winds up being what many people claim to want, it's definitely not what their genes want. I mean, if you go and, for instance, look at female behavior throughout the different parts of the menstrual cycle, they are predisposed toward more feminine faces in men, more safe, more nurturing, etc., except when ovulating.
Ah, interesting.
Except when ovulating, in which case the more masculine features wind up predominating in terms of attractiveness.
Right. So when they're not, because I was reading something, I was finding the comment. So when they're not ovulating, like it's more like more beta features, quote unquote beta things become a little bit more.
If you want to call it that, yeah.
Right. I was just searching for a word, like or less dominant sorts of things.
Less testosterone infused.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like when you're when especially when you're PMSing or something, you want to have a one of the girls around, one of the people that don't have testosterone, and obviously if you don't have girlfriends right around there, well then person with low testosterone a man with lower testosterone will also do.
So what Dennis had said, or his comment, was another aspect could be that of emotional manipulation referred to as willingness to emote. In the Mystery Method, a book, the author, I don't know, this is weird. This sentence is a little bit cumbersome at this part. I think he was typing and then he was thinking about something else and then he started. So I'm just going to skip that. He says
okay.
Because he says in the Mystery Method, a book, Mystery, the author who has a lot of experience. Oh, in the Mystery Method, a probably needs a comma there. A book, Mystery, it's capitalized, so I'm assuming that's the author. the author, who has a lot of experience with women, says you have to be willing to be emotionally manipulated by a woman to generate attraction. It is kind of like a dance to be emotionally manipulated. Most smart people will likely look through that BS. And yes, smart people can learn to be willing to emote. Nothing is black and white, etc. But yeah,
that doesn't mean. Okay, that I think is getting the dynamic kind of wrong.
Yeah, I have some because I don't think in general like spineless guys are the most attractive. I think maybe they're attractive as placeholders. That's how I'll say it. Maybe that's in that circumstance because they know they can get what they want. But so those traits, if you want just someone to be there, but you're not, it's like okay, and on the okay, this is what some of my intuition said. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but one way I could look at it would be, for example, so say a girl, she wants to get out on the market, she wants to start dating, and so for these kind of like, light-hearted like dating experiences, like not like going, okay, I'm gonna get married, I'm finding that sort of spouse, but like, okay, let's see who's out there, let's stir the pot, let's see what are the fish like in the sea here, right? Maybe I think, okay, so a girl might want to get their hands on a guy, if they're in this. So I'm gonna make some assumptions. I'm gonna lay out a little bit of groundwork. So let's say this. So it's a girl who's decided to search for some form of a significant other, and maybe it's like I want to get my feet wet, right? Like before I go in the pool. Maybe I don't want to just dive in. I want to, okay, let me just quickly start date who I can, find who I can, start dating as quickly as possible, right? So if I'm thinking about it, what would facilitate, like, what would make dating someone expedient? Well, those traits of being easy to manipulate, that sort of thing. That'd make it easy.
Like I can easily get what I want, and in the short term.
Yeah, in the short term, and then they will hold that. So it's like, okay, so this person's like a placeholder almost. It feels like it's like, okay, so now we're kind of
placeholder.
Not, yeah, we're they're not like the end goal. I don't want someone who's spineless as the end goal, but to signify that I'm dating, to generate competition in a way. For example, hey, look, this guy has me. Don't you want me instead? Kind of thing. Like,
at least when I see that kind of behavior,
not only increasing their worth, like to this person, and someone's attracted to me.
It's like when I see that kind of behavior, though, it's like I'm getting some sort of social proof that I'm worth something.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Like the affirmation.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, but that works an awful lot. That works an awful lot better for men than for women. That works a lot better for men than for women.
The social proof thing.
Do you know what has made this does not actually stop people from flirting with you?
What? Is that a bullet? No, it's a ring.
It's not
Oh, I just saw metal. I was like, yeah, I know you're holding a gun at them and they're still flirting. Man, that's some intense attraction. Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And it generates, I feel like probably they're like, it not only does it create like a challenge.
I suppose it's social proof. It's interesting because like even in Finland, where people aren't particularly social, it's amazing how much more flirtatious women will be. Like, for instance, if I have my daughter with me and I'm just going to the store or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
More so than they would have been at some other point.
Right.
It's it's really strange in that regard. I mean, I guess it's kind of expected,
Mm-hmm.
but still, it's a bit disconcerting.
Right. Yeah. Well, it is. It's kind of. I would compare it to like if you've ever seen like two dogs playing together, right? And then one grabs the bone, and let's say they have more than one toy. One grabs the bone, right? And then the other dog wants the bone. Like the other dog's not going to go look at the other toys. They want the one
They
that's
want the bone.
valued. It signifies value. So,
David's asking a really good
so
question.
when a girl goes out, maybe.
Yeah, David's asking a good question. He says, "But is she doing something morally wrong, or does the guy deserve it?" Meaning, like wrapping the guy around her little finger. Is she
Oh,
doing something morally wrong?
I would not say.
I mean,
No, no, no.
I would say, like, if you're in a committed relationship and your goal is to, like, run the whole thing, and you have this certain idea of what a relationship should be, and if that idea of the relationship is completely wrong, then yeah, I would say that is morally wrong. But I would say that you wind up ultimately pretty well deserving the way that people treat you in a mutually consensual relationship.
And
Like you can go and decide, I'm not going to put up with this. My answer to this is no, and be that as it is, people can react however they want to.
right.
And I've been married now for nearly 6 years. I mean, it's not that long of a marriage, but it's longer than many people wind up making it. And so
that's long. That's good.
I mean, I'm only 26. I've only been married since I've been 20. So it's like, well, whatever that's worth. And but from my experience and my understanding of the whole thing, there's always this there's this dynamic. I'll answer David's question first. What if he enjoys being her little toy? Then he shouldn't be surprised if she's getting some on the side from somebody else, and that he wouldn't actually wind up being raising somebody else's children. That is kind of the long and the short of it. May not necessarily be the case in the case of birth control being used and all the rest of it, but it certainly wouldn't be unheard of.
Yeah.
Well, I think and ultimately
it's very circumstantial.
And ultimately that particular dynamic is very I've found, at least to some extent, and my wife is very much the exception to many rules. She's really good in so many aspects of marriage. But even so, things aren't perfect between us, and I'll notice that there are lots of times that that she has expectations that I might consider unreasonable, or unreasonable would be a good would be a good word, and ultimately, then it winds up becoming a question of, okay, well, we're in this together. Is this really what just saying something, or just
right? How convicted are you?
Or being expressive, responsive, being like, I want this and I want this and I'm thinking this and I'm thinking that, and then having one's feelings being validated but not being necessarily the base of decisions. Whereas if someone says, I want this or I'm thinking this, and then immediately the person's going to jump and be like, okay, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll make sure that you get everything that you say that you want at any given time. I mean, there's obviously a continuum of how you can react to it.
Mm-hmm.
And in most of the cases where these things are brought up, the ultimate answer winds up being, no, this is actually not workable. or what in the world are you thinking? And it's weird because it doesn't like cause her to think less of you on account of doing that. Because, you know, if both of us felt like we would be able to just go in and make demands of the other person, regardless of all the
Of what? Right.
of all the circumstances going around. I mean, if just throwing words out there had that much weight, it's like some words don't carry any weight. Some words are only there for the purpose of expressing transient sentiment. And
Yeah.
and especially when it's a certain time of month, if it's not understood as such, things can go to hell in a handbasket really quickly.
Right.
Well, and
on David's question,
Jack also asked, both are being manipulated. Yeah, and both are manipulated. Yeah, both are manipulating. The difference is goodwill, presumption of goodwill, and actually having goodwill.
So so when it says, is it morally wrong or does the guy deserve it? I'm gonna say that's circumstantial. It depends. So girls, they're gonna try to do it, right? That I don't think trying to do the action by itself, I won't put a moral weight to that. We want to, you know, that in and of itself is not necessarily morally loaded. I think if, for example, if someone recognizes that someone's had a rough patch in their life or they've had a really hard time and that they'll be basically easy pickings, and that's why they do it, that's morally wrong, in my opinion. If someone, you know, is literally trying to take advantage of someone else, I think that's morally wrong. But if it's just, you know, kind of the expected, like, okay, I'm going to try to get what I want. Let me try to get what I want. I don't think I would call that morally wrong by itself.
Well, if it's emotional blackmail.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, yes. There is a spectrum there. Like, there's kind of a danger zone where, like, eventually, it becomes, you know, not morally correct. But
if you really loved me, you'd do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah. Oh yeah. That's like nope. And but from the guy's perspective, if you're fine with being manipulated and that's just your cup of tea, okay, then go ahead. If you're unhappy with it but you're still doing it, then grow a pair. That's you know, if it's still happening to you and you're still being, you know, manipulated and you're not holding your own and you're like, God, I hate this. I hate being controlled. Well, you know, you really need to just grow a pair. Like,
I mean, if someone wants to be manipulated, I suppose if that's their thing, I just...
Right. Yeah, but if you don't want to be manipulated and it takes two to tango, right? Like, you have pretty much control over.
You have control over your reactions, certainly.
Yeah, how you proceed, how you respond to that. You know, it's as simple as that. You know, like, there's like, especially people my age. Like, you look at relationships and it's just like a shit show. It's like a mess, like an awful mess of just, like, you know, like vying for power and jealousy and like, you know, like manipulation. And it's like, this is horrible. I mean, like, so many relationships, I'm just like, just end it. Like, I would just end it, you know. I don't say that, you know.
I'd say lots of people haven't learned healthy dynamics.
Yeah,
a lot of people haven't learned. I mean, it's not that like both people need to go and say, I'm not going to acquiesce to your request. No, you don't do that. That's not like... I mean, like, if you have the default, if you have the default answer being like a no, it's like the default answer is, I'm going to continue doing whatever it is that I'm doing until such a time as I'm convinced to do otherwise. And but if you can make a, you know, it's not saying that I. There has to be like I don't know quite how to phrase this properly, but there has to be a good way of saying, Mrs. Wife, I have a question. Mrs. Wife, I have a question for you. When it comes to our discussions and our interactions, it seems to me, at least to the best of my understanding, that we love each other, we care for each other, and we try to do what's best for both our marriage and then also for our children, and basically to have a family, and we make our decisions with the family as the priority. Would you kind of agree with that? Yeah, but in principle, that's what we're aiming to do. Okay, so that means that there are many situations where, for what our value system has established as the greater good, we need to both be able to say no to ourselves and to the other person. In that you request, or you can know that my request is not predicated upon some sort of evil desire to screw things up or to screw things over, but it's just yeah, good point with the open, honest communication thing. And yes, I'm going to go and use the terms that we throw back, even though that's not exactly the words that you said. But being able to openly and honestly communicate desires, wants, needs, and understand them through the lens of what's actually important in our relationship and in our family. And having something bigger that we've both agreed upon being the foundation of our interpersonal interaction, something else to which both of us happen to be subservient, kind of helps contextualize everything. And still we can wind up having the cognitive dissonance, and still we can wind up having all these difficult things. But ultimately, things do tend to work out. Thank you, sweetheart. So, I don't know, were you able to hear any of the conversation?
I've been cutting in and out, so no, not that much of anything in the past maybe 3 minutes. But
You mean you've been cutting in and out in terms of connection, or just that you've been not
Yes.
paying attention? Okay.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Not the paying attention thing. The cutting out Wi-Fi is screwing up.
Listen, your Wi-Fi or mine?
It's mine. It's mine. I'm sure it's mine.
Well, I mean, I saw that the stream got interrupted there about 1 minute ago. So, what have you?
Okay.
Either
Well,
way,
maybe, whatever.
either way, everyone still seems to be here. There's 6 people watching, and at
It
least.
says 7 for me.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's including
Well,
me. I don't know. Or maybe
so.
or maybe we just have a ghost.
Yes.
Either way, the thought, the conclusion of the conversation I had with my wife, just so that we can be making sure that we are kind of all on the same page, is that both are in a way subservient to a particular idea of what constitutes marriage.
Oh boy, it's
Hello.
It's having problems.
Lagging. It's probably on my end. It's 6:25 in the morning on a Wednesday, which means that people are starting to. Two, we're both subservient to this idea of what constitutes marriage, and we both
Right.
are on account of what it is that we promised, if nothing else, but then also on account of the goodwill that we have between us. Um, we've agreed to order our lives by certain principles in order to be able to have a healthy interaction between us and as a family.
Family.
And so
Right.
we wind up making our decisions in the context of what it is that we want. In the context of what it is that we've agreed that we want, on the context of what it is that we've agreed is important according to our value system. And so oftentimes that means that the other needs to, if the other person happens to be in the wrong, we need to say no. And we need to be, firm and clear in our no, and we don't have to be nasty about it, but we don't have to acquiesce to everything the other person says.
Yeah.
Especially if it winds up being demonstrably contrary to the principles that we've decided to establish our relationship on in the first place. And so having that particular context for healthy interpersonal interaction and the idea that we do love and respect one another and that there is that goodwill causes us to be able to judiciously say yes and no in an appropriate context-dependent manner. Now, certainly we are human beings.
Right.
We are certainly imperfect. We screw up. But it is completely possible to, have things turn out right, too. That was kind of the general conclusion.
Okay.
Is that ultimately we, even though we may have desires that are contrary to things, and we may voice them on occasion, we both just, have something bigger, a bigger guiding principle guiding our behavior, and hopefully at least one of us has our head screwed on straight and isn't suffering from hepatitis at any given time, so that you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, well, maybe not interestingly enough. That's kind of a bad segue to use, but a lot of people do not have like good examples of like healthy interaction and healthy just with people. Like for example, my parents. I had a great example. Like my parents didn't always agree on things, and they argue sometimes, and everything is not always smooth sailing. They're not the same person, and each of them does things wrong at times. And as you said, you have to correct it.
And we're human beings. It's part of the human experience. I don't know if a single person is perfect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. And so they're not like there's no ill will. There's no like my parents they work wonderfully together, and they get the goals they set out to accomplish, they get them done, and while loving each other the whole time. So I've had this great example of like how it's supposed to be. I argued. My parents let me argue. They let me assert myself. They let me have they'd let me have heated discussions. It'd just be my mom and me. My dad generally didn't get into those sorts of things, but they let me have a voice, right, and be assertive and hold my own. But also, they didn't treat me as infallible or anything. They they made it quite known, right? It's like, hey, like if I'm doing something wrong, they would make I would get corrected, accordingly, and so but not everyone has this, a good dynamic between their parents, or people just don't even have two parents there, so they might not have that example of what's. And while there's certainly people who may and end up having wonderful relationships and etc. Even in spite of having maybe not the best example. A lot of people do sort of face the negative effects of that in one way or another, and some unfortunately, one of the potential negative effects is having kind of a broken understanding of how a relationship should be, and because of that, sort of just having like just problems with picking the wrong people to date, being attracted to the wrong sorts of things. I think your parents imprint on you sort of like we naturally, I think, mimic them to at least a pretty significant degree with what we find attractive and what we think is right. I mean, think about political views. Like, how often are people's political views congruent with their parents? Pretty damn often. More often than not, the case.
Except during the rebellious
they're
phase.
kind of the example. Yeah, right. So they are kind of the example, and some people. So when they see something that's kind of dysfunctional, and that's what they have. That's what they know of relationship.
Then at least they can have the safety of knowing kind of what to expect.
Right.
There's the predictability, better the demon that I know.
Exactly. Other than, you're right, they don't exactly. And that's obviously sucks to see. And it's and you'll see it, like, people being attracted to like the wrong sort of person. Like, the things that they find attractive are like just like maladaptive traits, sort of like they'll literally be attracted to that sort of thing because they're attracted to it because that's how their parents were, and it imprints that attraction on you, kind of in a really messed up way. I mean, have you heard of girls with daddy issues? Right? They think of that, right? That trope,
or the Oedipus complex, or what have you.
Right.
All of that fun stuff.
Exactly, where people, it's like maybe where a girl's attracted to like kind of abusive guys or something like that. They're like, oh yeah, that's that reminds me of my dad or something. Whatever. It does,
and that,
they imprint.
Yeah, and that actually sets a very, very high standard of conduct for parents, because if I know that my son is going to be looking to me as an example for how to treat women, and looking at the dynamic between my wife and me, and then is going to be looking at his mom to determine what kind of a person he might like to, he knows how to get along with or would like to be like. And our daughter is going to be, looking at her mom and how she treats me, and so on, as an example of perhaps how she should act. And looking at me as an example of potential husband material behaviors and the like.
Exactly.
That sets the bar incredibly high, because you think, okay, well, you can kind of distance yourself from the situation and think about it more dispassionately in a way, because you think, okay, well, what kind of a person would I like to see my daughter married to in another 20 years or whatever? What kind of a person would I like to see my son married to? And especially in terms of thinking about my daughter and what kind of person I'd like to see her married to, that causes me to think, nowhere near as much as I should, but nevertheless causes me to think about what kind of a husband and a father I'm being now, especially what kind of a husband I'm being, because ultimately the question is, what kind of a person do I want to see her being married to? Right. And I try to exemplify that, and because because you then wind up viewing your daughter as somebody that you care about unconditionally and love as a parent loves her kid. Then you can go and think, well, okay, if I think about my wife in the same way, you don't really view your spouse as a child. You view your spouse as an equal in that regard. But if you think about, okay, well, what would a loving father of hers want me to be like?
Mm-hmm.
What would be best for her?
Look at it from different angles like that. Yeah,
that perspective really helps.
It can sober you up, right?
And it helps in the opposite direction as well. I mean, it doesn't only help in terms of looking at my parents and saying, well, okay, what aspects of my parents' relationship do I like and not, but also just all of those perspectives, and then taking a chance to just take a step back and look. Yeah.
It helps you not get caught up in the me sort of thing, right? Like it it's like, okay, I need to consider these other people. I need to tread carefully, I'm not only doing this for myself, right? So even if that's natural intuition is to, in some circumstances, sometimes you have to doubt, oh wait, I shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. I wouldn't want this. Like, this is bad. Like, I'm being a little, selfish or something like that.
Yeah.
And being able to catch yourself in those sorts of moments that inevitably happen, right?
And I'd say that for good-willed, introspective people, having kids can be wonderful for the marriage.
Oh yeah.
But then if there isn't the goodwill, there's not the willingness to introspect, there's not all these other elements, having kids could also potentially be a disaster.
Yeah.
But
it could be a really contentious thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then people think, well, okay, we'll just stick together on account of the kids, on account of the fact that the kids need to have, should probably have their parents stick together due to the benefits, the statistically better outcomes, or somehow that we have been involved with each other in procreating this other life, and so we both can kind of get involved with our child's life even if we don't care about the other person all that much. That leads to very, very unhealthy dynamics. But if that introspection takes place, then a lot of the problems can be avoided.
Mm-hmm. Right. And yeah, it's an interesting thing because it's just so often done like incorrectly. And I'm talking about especially at my age, like the relationships I see. It's like it's very. I mean, obviously,
how old are
people
you now?
need to get 19.
Okay, so 1 year. Like I was engaged at your age.
Yeah.
Okay, so
right.
so I mean, no excuses. No excuses. Says the old fart.
Old fart, just 26. Nah.
Back in my day. Back in my day.
Yeah.
We used Google Video Chat. Talk in a long distance relationship. We didn't have none of this Discord stuff.
Oh boy, that's funny. Oh man, but I mean, I'm not necessarily going to use you as this, as the standard. Considering since you were so you're so far ahead in school there that maybe it's equivalent. It's equivalent to someone else meeting someone in their mid-20s, maybe.
Maybe. I really don't know. I mean, I've kind of had this idea that adolescence sucks. It's a construct of modernity. It needs to be, stamped out and never returned to ever again. But, that takes at least a generation to fix.
Yeah, very true. That the lowered expectations thing is sort of a not fun to see. Like people acting in a way that like they just like, it's okay, I'm an adolescent, And I've used the excuse before. I've done something, stupid things, and I'm like, oh mom, I'm only 19.
Well, I'm sure that it makes it.
But then I use the same excuse. I use the same excuse to mom. I'm 19 years old. Why are you doing this for me? I used both sides of the coin. So,
and that was actually something my dad said. My parents made that unequivocally clear. Is you cannot use your age like a double-edged sword. That way, we won't let that fly.
Yeah.
You can't use it as an excuse for responsibility and irresponsibility. Pick one and go with it. We'll treat you like you deserve to be treated. But that would. Sorry, this is just.
No, yeah, of course. No, of course. Yeah, I don't. There are very few situations, but I use my FE, so shit happens.
And I have an INTJ dad.
Yep. Oh, yep. There you go. I have my ENFJ mom, ENTP dad. So, and it's most of the parental interaction as far as like parenting matters is like that's usually has been my mom, right? And my dad's just like, yeah, do what your mom says. He supports her decisions, and we'll have her back. If I'm arguing, sometimes they'll team up on me, and I can't finagle my way out of it, or it's frustrating for me, but it's a good thing. It's definitely a good thing for me that I can be reined in, and not just get what try to get what I want. That's one thing I think some parents do is like they let themselves kind of be manipulated by their kids, and I think this might especially be the case in relationships where the kid is smarter than the parents. And so the parents will kind of it'll be this like halo effect where they just assume, my child can do no wrong. What they say is they're probably right. And really bad things happen. And then you get this, you kind of get this just uncontrolled person who doesn't think they can do wrong. And very entitled and manipulative and things like that. It's not good. Someone with who's really really looking out for themselves mostly, and someone who's not you just don't cultivate like altruism in that environment, and unless the kid unless the kid is good of heart and doesn't do those things. But but the point was that if the kid is doing those things, it is good. So yeah, that's something I think I've probably seen, if I can think about it, some kids like that. But no, I was trying since a young age to do that sort of thing. And Mom, sir, she said she was really really mad at me when I said that. But that's one was too. But she held her ground. And no was the answer, even though I said that so assertively and with so much conviction. 2-year-old me could not change the situation with my conviction.
Oh man.
So
strong-willed children.
Now that didn't stop me just sometimes, but
I'm sure it didn't. And it doesn't stop you from trying. It doesn't stop kids from trying periodically. I mean, it's one of the biggest joys in life and one of the biggest stressors in life is dealing with an intelligent, strong-willed child.
Oh yeah.
It's so awesome because you can see this channeled right. This stuff is going to work out.
Yeah,
and still, there's the potential. There's so much potential for destruction if you screw things up.
Right, exactly.
Or if they screw things up. I mean, obviously,
it's like a coefficient on life outcomes, and only you can decide if it's a positive or a negative. X value.
Well, and then there's still the outliers. My dad is an outlier for all practical purposes. He should be, I don't know, a drunk, dead, something of that nature, but instead he grew up to be incredibly well adjusted to wherever he wound up having to go. And I would say a great deal of that was due to his intellect, and another great deal of it. I mean, he had the INTJ not giving a rat's behind about what other people think aspect from a very young age, and so even though he had a whole bunch of bad influences, they didn't influence him the same way. But he's the exception to many people. And that's the other thing about parenting is you need to be able to let kids make their mistakes, but pick the mistakes that you let them make. It's like there's no use if they don't survive to adulthood.
Oh God,
or
and that's one thing. My parents, and that's one thing. They let me, since I've been strong-willed. I just always have. I've always vied for freedom, as much freedom as possible. As soon as I could walk, I was trying to go places. As soon as I could ride my bike, I was leaving the house. I wanted to. Oh, let's go down the street. Like there was no. So
it's a very good desire. The thing is that responsibility needs to be
there too,
and it needs to be commensurate with the freedom that you have.
Freedom
and capacity to make good choices, and parents have generally control over both of those aspects of their children's lives, at least for
right. Well, and so my parents, and that one thing they did let me do, which some parents don't let their kids do, and which creates kind of problems for them with adapting, is they let me fall on my face. Think about it. I love bringing up this example because it's just such a plain controlled example of a principle. But if you've ever seen the videos of the AI trying to figure out how to do a course, you'll look at the first trials, they're just falling everywhere. My parents just let me just freaking fall on my face and over again over random things, right? And fall on my face, both literally and
excellent.
Right?
Excellent. That's good parenting.
Yeah. So I just made so many mistakes, all right, but I had the control and the freedoms, and they trusted that I would be, clever enough to not be, kill myself or do something really, irreparable. And what that's done is given me lots of literally, I'm just going to say control over my environment. When you're more experienced with something,
you've had more experience making decisions than most people your age.
Yeah, and I've had not only more experience making decisions, but because I'm someone who vies for freedom, and I've been more places, and I've made decisions that lead me into situations that they just haven't been in before.
It's an investment with compound interest.
Yeah, exactly, and so I see myself as good at appraising a situation. I see myself as someone I feel comfortable pretty much anywhere. There's nowhere I'm like, oh God, I hate it here. I'm not a big fan of public restrooms, but I'm fine. I don't, but other, in general, I feel very, and I feel
never sit down on the yellow seat.
Yep. Make sure you do a curse, a little get some toilet paper,
cursory wipe. Yes.
Yeah, the cursory wipe. Yep. Oh yeah. Yes, that's an important one.
Or be able to squat for reasonably prolonged periods of time.
Yes, exactly. But I compared to I feel much more confident in not only so that control. My parents, they didn't stifle me. They let me try to manipulate them. They let me try to get my way. They let me try to logically reason. And if my reasoning was sound enough, they would let me have my way. If I made sense and I was coherent and cogent, they're like, okay, yeah, we'll let you do this. That's okay. When I was little, I was like, hey, can you just stop even looking at my grades at all? It's I'm the one going to school. I said that this is first grade. I was like, I'm the one going to school. I'm the one doing the classes. It's not you. It doesn't do anything for you to keep up. I can handle it on my own. And they're like, okay, and I did fine. My parents never checked my grades from that point on. They, obviously they see them progress reports and at the end of the year sort of thing, but they didn't ask me about homework. They let me deal with all of it. So,
And so you wound up experiencing the consequences of your actions, good or bad, and that was that.
Yeah, exactly.
Actions, you didn't have actions divorced from consequences.
Yeah. Right. It's almost that's essential for learning. Because so and doing that, and not only have my own freedom, but letting me, letting me vie for freedom, like not stifling me in any way, letting me try to do the manipulative thing. Let me try to like reason my way out, and not not punishing me for that all the time. Most of the time, I didn't really get my way, right? Probably, I don't know off the top, but most of the time, I definitely didn't get my way. But some of the times I did.
But and it was worth it for those some of the times. Yes. You learned to negotiate. You learned to present information. Not everything is a negotiation.
Very true.
Like parents do have the right to veto, and that's part of the responsibility that we have. But the fact is, it's not going to be this stupid, idiotically dogmatic, or I mean, certain kinds of dogmas are okay, but not unreasonable.
Yeah, no, literally.
I mean, you just be reasonable as parents, and obviously do what's developmentally appropriate for each kiddo. I'm treating my daughter my son at the same age very differently than my daughter. My son is going to burn the house down if we're not careful. It's
right, exactly. You treat them at it's like the what maybe that IN. You said your daughter you think has an F. INFJ versus the ENTP. You might need to watch.
Maybe INTJ. Maybe INTJ. I don't know.
Okay, maybe INTJ. So you might want to. You're probably going to want to watch the ENTP a little bit more closely than.
Certainly.
Of course.
Certainly.
Because they're much right. But what that sort of like style has done for me is like in situations dealing with people, which is inevitably. That's basically like life, right? We live, you know the meme. We live in a society. Like, you're gonna have to deal with people. You're gonna have to, you're gonna have to work within the bounds of what other people are doing, are doing. And what that has done for me is given me like lots of control over those sorts of environments that I wouldn't have before. I'm more assertive. I try to get my way. I try to find the easy way out. I go up and ask the teacher, "Hey, I hate this class. Let me go into the harder one." And you know what? They let me do it. I go to job interviews.
Are okay.
I do really well. Yeah, exactly. I do really, really well at job interviews, for example. Wonderfully, sometimes my work experience doesn't even back it up. Like I wasn't a very good, I wasn't a great kennel worker. I didn't have a close attention to detail. So, sometimes, there'd be like hair on the floor and they're like, what is this there for? I didn't even see it. That sort of thing. Or, so even if my recommendation is bad, I still get the job. The door is opened. It's up to me. And then it's up to me to, up to me to perform. But it basically opens doors.
Interviewing in principle, I've never found that to be difficult.
No.
But that involves generally knowing what people are expecting or want, and you're not going to do that unless you've interacted with people.
Right, and it also gave me kind of a kind of a compass or some sort of measuring tool to like when dealing with people, knowing when it's like if someone's doing something that's wrong, right? And I'm like, that's wrong. Like I know. Like what you're doing, like that's incorrect. Like I'm not going to stand for that. I'm not going to like I'll draw the line. I'm since I've had experience and seen a lot of situations, I have my detector for when things go wrong and for when someone's doing something that's maybe morally bad. I react accordingly. I stay away from that sort of person. And like, hey, what the hell's going on? Why are you doing this? Because my parents gave me freedom, I'm looking for it. So when someone tries to manipulate me in some way, which happens, everyone tries. Every single person, I can say this with pretty good confidence. Every single person tuning into the stream and in the stream has had someone try to manipulate them in some way before. It just that happens. People try to control others because more power, right? More freedom, better reproductive outcomes. But But you know, being able to like hold your ground in those sorts of situations, and screw off, don't do that. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, you know, if my ex asked me to like remove a friend from, like, no, I'm not going to not be friends with someone because you're irrational. That's not going to happen. I'm not.
Yeah, we've been friends before we were in a relation. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
no, if it has
Like,
something to do with, like, I'm not going to deal with you being around this person that's constantly flirting with you and trying to get into your pants, well,
yeah, that's more reasonable. But on the other hand, you know, on the other hand, generally, like, this might be just be me. I feel like there also has some level of trust there.
well, certainly.
That you're if you're significant, if you're worried that your significant other is going to cheat on you, that's probably, like, there's something else. Like, if that's actually worrying, if it's not like an irrational, like, oh god, you know, it's like, if it's not an irrational, like, oh god, like, I hope that doesn't happen. I don't think it will, but you're worried. Like, that's, you know, everyone kind of has that sort of thing, I'm sure, at some point or another. But if it's like you're actually worried that that's going to happen, like, that's kind of a sign of the health of your relationship, right? Not,
yeah.
Like, if it's a good relationship, you shouldn't be worried, right?
Well, so I would say I completely agree with the fact that you shouldn't be worried. And nevertheless, my wife and I do have basically the safeguard in place that unless we're in completely public areas, or with people that we all happen to know and trust, we just avoid, you know. Like, I'm not somehow going to find myself on a business trip alone with a woman.
Right.
I'm just not going to allow myself to be in that situation, and she would
fair,
never find herself,
principle.
you know, being, you know, alone in a particular circumstance like that with a man, and we have each of us the ability to say, look, she doesn't want X person in my life. Okay, that's because of an actual reason. Yeah, that's fine. I don't want to have X person in her life because of an actual. That's fine, and we find out that an awful lot of the people that we know are either single people of the same gender as one of us, or couples that we happen to get along with, and that's more incidental than anything else. But it seems to work for us. Now, granted, if you have other ways that you can figure these sorts of things out, then by all means do that. But we actually do have that particular safeguard in place just in case. We have lots of safeguards in place just in case that we don't think will ever be necessary, but we have them just out of principle.
Yeah, out of principle. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Exactly, out of principle. It just makes sense. In my particular situation, the girl that she's worried about was like a childhood friend, right? Like, someone who I've known, like, since I was probably in diapers.
So someone that you see as a sister, I'm guessing.
Who's like almost like a sibling, sort of.
And that's a perfectly healthy interaction. In fact, I would say that's about the only kind of healthy other kind of interaction that you can have with someone
from the deep south, right? Like, that's
no. I ain't never done my sister. No, it's just that,
right.
Exactly.
And I'm not someone who's going out there and making, like, friends with the opposite sex. Like,
well, just explicitly for the purpose of, you know,
for just being friends. Like, no, they're probably like, you know, if I'm going, like, generally, if I'm hanging around a girl a lot, I'm interested in her romantically. Like, that sort of is, like, or not if I'm hanging around her a lot necessarily, but if I'm, like, going out of my way, hanging
out with her exclusively, being
like trying
seeking her explicitly.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you wind up having the people that are like sisters.
Yes.
Or for women, the people that are like brothers.
Exactly. It's like, well, I've known this person since childhood. We're like siblings. We've grown up together. So yeah, that's maybe in a different world where we didn't meet before, it would be kind of something you'd be worried about. But like, it's like, you know, I'm not going to push away family for for that sort of thing.
Yeah. And that's perfect. And that, I would say, would be perfectly reasonable. But, you know, then if things did start to get, you know, more steamy or what have you, then it would be entirely reasonable to say, okay, this something's going screwy here. Let's put a stop to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
But that's done on a case by case basis in a context dependent fashion. You don't just go and make necessarily a blanket ban on something that isn't a problem.
Right.
I mean, like,
exactly.
I haven't seen a lot of my childhood friends due to the fact of me being 4,300 miles away from them for quite some time. But that doesn't mean, like, if I don't go, like, if my wife goes and sees her, the guys that she hung out with as a child, the people that she would hang out with after church on Sunday, I don't have any problem with her going by herself to. I mean, I just know nothing's going to happen. I mean, if I go and I go back to the United States, and I go and I visit, say for instance, childhood friend in her family, and I get the chance to see her kids or whatever. I mean, that's just going to be a privilege of getting caught up with childhood friend. There's no more to it than that, and my wife knows that, and we both trust each other. But we also know that the other person is trustworthy because we go out of our way to be trustworthy and to demonstrate trustworthiness in both tangible and not quite so tangible fashions on a regular basis anyway. We're constantly, if you view trust as kind of a bank, we're constantly making deposits in there, and we're not, and there's no reason for there to be any kind of withdrawal.
Yeah, exactly. It's letting the trust build up over time, and naturally it gets stronger and stronger.
And one of the things is I already knew her character before we were even an item, before we were even a couple. And she knew my character before we were even a couple. We had kind of known each other from, like, we'd lived under the same roof. So, in that sense, we had a very much brother-sister kind of a relationship for a good while. Especially when I was not single. I was like, obviously I'm not going to be,
Right. Well, of course.
Simultaneously involved with two different people. That's...
Right.
I mean, aside from the fact that it's a gigantic can of worms, there's just all sorts of other reasons. Just it's bad. It's wrong. It's wrong if you're an whatever.
That's not something I could do.
But nevertheless, I got a chance to see her on a regular basis. We were in the car together, going to our respective schools every morning and coming home. Every evening. It's like I got to know her, and I knew what was important to her.
And got an idea of who she is, right?
Yeah, and then it becomes absolutely obvious if you've gotten to know someone well enough, or at least gotten a chance to see enough of what people put on display when they're not at their best, what somebody's character is like, and then you can make your decisions based upon that. And so I would highly recommend that if you're involved with somebody, do things to help you quickly elucidate that person's character rather than sitting there wasting your time playing with fire.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. And with certain types of people, you can tell a whole lot, right? Like, for example, the girl that I used to like when I first came to college. I'll just rehash it a little bit. So basically the context is built. But, I came to college, Mizzou. I expected college to be, really, a learning opportunity in multiple different ways. Some of those ways, it definitely was. Some of those ways, like class, class was not a learning opportunity. But, like, the environment was. But essentially, I come there. I'm in, I was pre-med in the honors college, and so I'm like, and I was on the pre-med FIG, which is freshman interest group, floor. So I was with all the other, everyone else was too. So and it was it's not unisex. It's multiple. There's a concoction segregated by the girls are on that side of the hall, the guys are on that. No, it's just random. It could be a girl and a guy. Now, as far as suite mates, it's the same gender. but other than that, it's
And suite is a
it,
pretty liberal term for.
yeah. If you call it a suite, my 152 square foot room, well, my 76 square feet of it. But anyway, um, so I'm coming there, whatever. Like I assume I figured myself a clever person, but not an academic person, not someone who was good in school. Um, and sometimes someone who had problems translating ability to like results on paper as far as grades go. Tests, that was fine. I could destroy those, but when it came to like sustained effort in school and organization and like not getting bored and just quitting, I had a spotty track record. And so so I'm not a conscientious person. I'm kind of immature and just coming into college and stuff, and a little arrogant in certain ways as well. I still am a little arrogant. That's oh well. But essentially, like I get there, and then seeing all these kids in school, like they just know what's going on. I get there, I land in college. I'm mostly confused about what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, what papers do I have to, like, what do I need to sign up for? What do I need to pay for? Like, how do I pay for what I need to pay for? Like, I'm just there. I'm not someone who's like, I don't have that I haven't done enough real world things with details. I've avoided those sorts of things. And, all my only experience was high school. So, it's not exactly like you're going to pick up that skill there. But, as far as like paying attention to what was going on in my environment, like as far as like clerical things like of that nature, pretty piss poor at it. But I was really good at outsourcing, really good. I acted like a bimbo the first week, just absolute bimbo. Just acted. I mean, I was kind of like I didn't know really what, right, like that well. I could have figured it out though. I could have figured out. I could have.
You just did the whole thing where you outsource and play the complete and total idiot blonde,
right?
Even though you don't have blonde hair, whatever. I've done it too, and it works.
Well, and here's the thing: is people, especially honors kids, they've had this reward feedback loop their whole life, where they
oh, you're so smart. Can you help me figure this out?
Yeah.
Oh, you're so smart, and you just go and you pander to that, and you pander to how smart they think that they are, and then they're willing to bend over backwards to help you.
Oh yeah, they'll do so much for you. Like there's girls just cleaning my room. They cleaned my room. She's like, "Oh, this is a mess. I'll show you how to fold clothes." All right, folds all the clothes, puts them all up, like sweeps. I'm like, okay, thank you, thank you. But like, you act, these people really want to go out of their way. And so, I knew that, and I knew honors kids. So I was like, I'm gonna, and especially when I'm in a new environment, you don't show your hand, right? When you're playing cards, you don't show your hand. You don't just make it known. Like depending, Now, if it's a job interview, you show your hand. You don't try to be mysterious and
not mysterious, but you can still in a job interview, ascertain what it is. Yeah, exactly.
That's fair.
Exactly.
So yeah, first you ascertain. You want to have a feel for the people in the group. So luckily, with our group, our floor was quite close. A lot of like floors for dorms and colleges, like they don't know each other and they don't hang out. But ours hung out a lot. We had a lot in common, I guess, and that's part of us being part of the same freshman interest group. So you get a lot of at the beginning, it's just a big group of people, right, all doing everything together. It's obviously not going to stay that way. So it's just this filtering process where you figure out how people are, etc. And so, and I'm an extrovert and someone who loves using FE. So this was just a perfect situation for me. I felt very powerful in this situation. A huge group of people who want to who want to exercise their competence and appear able and stuff like that. They want to prove they know what's going on. I was not interested. I didn't care. I'm just like, okay, so I'm acting clueless. Everything gets set up for me basically. Like everyone helps me with every little thing. Like as far as like getting signing up for the homework, like or like the programming class you used to take attendance, signing up for that, like getting the textbooks. what I need for the class is all of it. Like, so much was just, done for me. And that's what. It's not that I'm necessarily horrible with details. I'm not great with them, of course, but it's not like I'm just there. They bewilder me. It's just that the easier way out for me to there is to not figure it out on my own. It is to outsource it, because even in the process of outsourcing, I get to see how people are. It's a win-win. You get stuff done, and you get to figure out what people are like. You get to get a feel for them. ENTPs always are trying to feel out other people. That's why they do the contentious jokes, they do the things that
you do that thing where you can back off just enough to be able to but still be able to feel out where are people's actual lines of.
Exactly. So you don't get the social repercussions, but you do get the information that you would anyway. So it's
like if the INTJ if the INTJ attempts to do the same thing, he gets the information, but
so we walk the tightrope.
You walk the tightrope you walk the tightrope that I just felt. Well, no, you walk the tightrope over which I attempt to drive a bulldozer.
Right. And so, I'm feeling out these people, and most of them I was not really impressed. Like,
Steven,
how
would
they
you be
were.
able to check your WhatsApp messages?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yep. So yeah. Basically, so yeah, I wasn't impressed though by most of the people. Like a lot of them, they seem very eager to prove themselves as smart honors kids, and there was lots of discussion. So you figure out what they think about how they think, etc. It wasn't impressive. It was what I expected. But then I met this specific girl, and I was like, wow, she distanced herself from the group, wasn't really a part of it, definitely an introvert. So, but she seemed like purposeful, and then I got to know her more and more, and like we spent a little bit of time. We had an affinity towards each other, and I'm like, this girl's like perfect. Like she's so good with details, so planned. She's smart. Like she had she had the same standardized test score as I had. She is played an instrument, was good at singing, was pretty. All of these things. I was like, God, this is like wife material. And so, basically, the short story, the long and short of it was I was basically insecure about all the things I was kind of poor at, like school and academics. I saw all the things she was good at, which were those things. And so, I learned a math course really fast that she was struggling with, and my crush disappeared. But I was attracted to this person. Not only it wasn't just that, right? But she was like a person who it was an INTJ. ENTPs and INTJs have an affinity towards each other. In general, I'm as I understand it. Yes. And that's rare in a girl. So I was like, God. But she's someone who with very little exposure. The whole point of the story is with very little exposure. I'm praising people all the time. I could tell like this is someone who I can trust. This is someone who like is not going to betray me. This is someone who like holds to their values and who has defined values. And like it wasn't someone who would be worried. Like I still see this person as like a potential. If I wanted to go out on the market. Further along the line, it's not someone I'm like, oh, I'm not going to date that person. Like, no, it's someone I would definitely be very open to date. I think we're extremely compatible. But the values, like, and the trust, like, how I could just, like, this person, like, I understood how they're going to work, and they were very competent at the same time. And like another ENTP, that would be scary. Like an ENTP girl, I'd be like, I'm like, oh God, I don't even know. Like I would have no idea what she'd want. It'd be lots of games back and forth, right? But yeah, that's sort of the conclusion. It's kind of like how you can tell someone's character, kind of. So like you get that gut feeling, and my gut feelings I trust. So like this is someone who I knew I could trust,
Mm-hmm.
with very very little exposure.
All right.
But yeah,
Well, on that note,
that is
it's already 15 after.
all right.
So we'll conclude the stream, and I will thank you very much, Steven, for
Okay. Yep.
for participating and being here, and so on. And thank you everyone else who stayed to the end or who participated to any extent. And thank you to all who watched this as a VOD.
Yep.
We'll be I don't know if Steven will be here, but I know I'll definitely be same time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, and 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. I'll be streaming, talking a bit about the Iliad. We only got a little bit into it today because of our conversation that the whole thing with Helena Troy kind of sparked. But I liked it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good.
It's like an hour and a half just went by and it felt like nothing. It was like flow state all the way. It was awesome.
I lose track of time every time. Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, thank you everyone, and we'll see you later.